What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Bass Fishing Declassified. Today I have a question for Jimmy, and we're going to discuss a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. Is jig fishing still relevant in 2024 at the highest level of professional bass fishing? We're seeing the jig head minnow, basically the freeloader, shaking the minnow, whatever you want to call it, is dominating pro fishing right now. And my favorite technique in the entire world is fishing a jig. So my question to you, Jimmy, do you feel like jig fishing is still going to be relevant in 2024 and onwards, or is it going to be an outdated technique because of those big screens up there at the front of the boat?
Yeah, that guy up there. So he does love catching fish with the jig. And guys, you know, if you follow on the Declassified, I do as well. But if you followed my channel, The Fishing Coach, and all my videos lately, you've seen I've not thrown a jig much lately. I've been shaking the minnow. Yep. I've been shaking and baking, but I do throw a swing head still right now. But is jig fishing still relevant for the top pros? I believe so. There's a few guys that are still fishing a jig. Tyler Williams is one at the top of my head. I'm trying to think of the other guy's name I'm looking at that was in that young group of anglers that, you know, just came from the EQs up. There's another one of those guys that's really good at the jig too. The thing about the jig though, and I think someone's gonna more figure it out. They've all figured this dude out. They've all figured this guy out right here. Here he is. But guys, there's a time and place for throwing the jig at fish on the bottom. Yep. And not just at the bottom, but shallower cover. And I know for me personally, the hair jig was a player for me last year with the LiveScope. Yep. And even in the winter, I've thrown it and caught fish with it. But I know that's in the jig realm. So I'm ready for more of those guys at the top level to figure out how to catch fish with the bottom with the jig. And you can still throw in brush piles and throw standing timber and this and that and the other. But I still think it is. I'm just ready. I'm ready for a tournament to be won on it. I'm not gonna lie. I am. For sure, yeah. I think it is as well. And if you look at some of the Bassmaster Opens and things last year, several of the Opens, there was the Lake of the Ozarks Open was one, like Kyle Patrick fishing a jig. I was about to say, Kyle Patrick was the other guy in that top 9 guys that just made it to the elites who's good at fishing a jig. Kyle the other day on what podcast I listened to him on, he was on a podcast, one of the major ones, and he said he is not good with that. He's like, I'm not good with the LiveScope. And he might be meaning that guys compared to like Ben Milliken and those dudes, because he quote unquote said that. But I know he's good with that, but he's really good at fishing the jig. Yeah. He said it. I mean, that's his bait. For sure. Well, and there's Tyler Williams, too, who's 100% just like a jig guy. And if you look at the deck of his boat, any tournament, it's funny. He was in Florida, and he has the same jig tied on, and he's doing well no matter where he's fishing. He won an Open last year throwing a jig. Yeah. So I think jig fishing is relevant. It's just with a jig, there's a couple of things that I feel like are really important. One, it's basically your Damiki. So if you look at the Damiki, all the Damiki is a jig with a straight tail trailer, and it doesn't have a weed guard and doesn't have a skirt. So it's a little bit different, but it's not like it's a crankbait or anything. So it's very similar in design. And I feel like at times you can get better quality bites in a jig than any other bait out there. Now, when these fish are really keyed in on shad and they're floating out in the middle of the lake, that freeloader, the Damiki rig, is really hard to beat. But when they start setting up more around cover, like brush piles, rock piles, as Jimmy was saying, tire to the bottom, the jig can be super effective because one, it can come through cover very easily, and 2, you can fish it in so many different ways. So like my favorite way to throw a jig is just by putting a craw trailer on. This is my Fish at the Moment offshore jig by Jewel Bait Company, 5/8 ounce football jig. And you can drag this in the bottom, you can stroke the jig by hopping it, you can work it through brush piles, you can fish it in shallow cover even. But another style that is really effective for me is a swim jig. And this is something that put the beat down on Jimmy and Matt Steffen when we were on Table Rock a couple of years ago, and it is basically a swim jig with a straight tail minnow on the back. So this is literally just basically a Damiki rig with a skirt. You did that in the fall of 2022, guys. Like, stuff you're seeing right now with the Damiki rig stuff, you did it with that swim jig. Not this exact one, but you did the exact same setup. You had the long fluke-style trailer on it. And I just remember me and Matt were kind of like, I'd say shocked. I wasn't shocked because I've known Johnny, but Matt, that was his first time hanging with you.
Yeah.
And you found them fish with the 10XD, or you found them fish by graphing, doing your thing, caught them with the 10XD. Then something happened with the 10XD and you went to this guy.
Yep.
And I'll let you go more in on that.
Yeah, it was September. I mean, really tough time of the year to catch them in general. And I think my best 5 would have gone like 21, 22 pounds.
He cracked them.
And I was fishing it in the top of standing timber, basically burning the jig and stopping it, burning it, stopping it. And I wasn't even using LiveScope to see those fish. In all honesty, I knew where the trees were setting up, and I had them waypointed, and I was throwing at them, and I was staying really far away, bombing it, and I was just burning and stopping it, burning it, stopping the jig. And I think that's one thing that I do find interesting when I'm fishing with the LiveScope and the jig, is that you can follow the fish with the jig. You can kind of try to get them to bite and read their reaction. I hear Tyler Williams talk about that a lot. I find that I'm a lot more efficient and effective with a jig if I just basically use the LiveScope to target where the cover is directionally and then work the jig like I normally would. So like with this big swim jig, the way I'm fishing is almost like a hair jig. Let it sink down maybe 10, 15 feet, the depth I want to, burn it 5 or 6 times with the reel handle, let it fall, burn it 5 or 6 times with the reel handle, let it fall for 5, 10 seconds. And what that'll do is it will basically hop that bait up, let it fall, and I'm not really watching the fish and how they react to it like you do with the Damiki rig. And I think that there's something to that. It's something that's been very effective for me over the last few years, is not getting so keyed in on, oh, that fish is following my jig, or oh, you know, there he is. Instead, it's getting around the key areas, finding the fish with my side imaging, down imaging 2D sonar, and then just fishing the jig like normal. Again, using that LiveScope maybe to pinpoint where the stump or the brush or whatever it is. And I think that is, for me at least, what I found to be the most effective, though I could see some guys figuring out how to use these jigs like the Damiki rig also to get those fish to react.
That's also what I'm waiting for too, like with that hair jig, fishing it kind of like the Damiki rig. You know, last year I was still fishing it as we would, you know, but just watching the fish. I just keep doing, you know, just doing how we retrieve it and watch them react. It was just pretty cool. But fishing for them suspended fish, but even on the bottom, just trying to do some different little deals with it. But man, I think we've both there answered that question. Is it still relevant? And I know guys, like right now when you're watching this video, I don't know what tournament's gonna come out next. Maybe the BPT at Del Hollow will be done and they'll probably catch them on this. But guys, hang in there with us because somebody's gonna win a tournament on a jig this year.
Yeah, that is what I'm waiting for, because that is my favorite way to fish. Honestly, if you had to give me one bait to throw the rest of my life, it would be probably a jig, and if I could pick like a couple different color sizes, that'd be great. But a jig is going to carry me over any time of the year, 12 months of the year. Favorite way to catch them. There's nothing better than just cracking one on the jig, is there?
It's been a while, but I miss that bite. I might need to go get that bite done.
Yeah, Jimmy, when I first was having Jimmy work with the Fish the Moment channel, he had one spinning rod on the boat that didn't even work. And the reel was on the other, handle was on the other side. Now he's got 1, 2, 3, he's like 12 spinning rods in the boat.
I got spinning rod. I'm spinning rod.
He forgot what a jig bite feels like. We need to get him back out there, Jimmy, and get you on a jig, because that is still the best bite in bass fishing.
Man, appreciate it, Johnny. Thank you guys for watching Bass Fishing Declassified. And hey, we will see you on the next one.
See you guys.